At exactly 2:13 a.m., Ayan woke up to the sound of whispering. Not loud, not clear, but definitely there. The room was dark, still, and cold, as if something unseen had been waiting just for him to open his eyes. He sat up slowly, listening. The whispering stopped the second he moved. He wasn't sure if it had come from the hallway or from inside the room itself. But it wasn't a dream. He knew that much. Just 2 days earlier, Ayan had arrived at his cousin's old house in a quiet hill town. The house was huge, built in the 1940s, with creaking wooden floors, long, empty corridors, and corners that always seemed a little darker than they should be. His cousin Faizan had insisted the place was harmless, just old and poorly lit. But something about it felt wrong the moment Ayan stepped in. The neighbors didn't talk much, but the few who did had warned him. "You'll hear things at night," one old man had whispered, "but don't answer back." Ayan had laughed it off then. But now, sitting alone in bed, surrounded by shadows and that strange, cold silence, it wasn't funny anymore. The whispers came again, this time softer, almost like they were inside his ears. He stood up slowly and walked toward the door, unsure why his hand was shaking. Just as he reached for the doorknob, he heard it, clear this time. A voice, close, just behind him. "Ayan." He froze. The lights flickered, and something moved across the mirror in the dark, something that didn't look like him. If you think the night is silent, think again. Sometimes the dark whispers back. Ayan turned around slowly, heart pounding in his chest, but there was no one behind him, just the dim outline of his own reflection in the mirror. But something felt off. His reflection wasn't moving exactly when he did. There was a tiny delay, just enough to notice, just enough to make his skin crawl. He stepped closer to the mirror and whispered his own name back, testing what he had heard. Nothing. Silence. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. He looked into his own eyes, searching for something, anything, but all he saw was confusion and fear. The next morning, he tried to brush it off. Maybe he had just been half asleep. Maybe it was the wind, the old walls, or his tired mind playing tricks. Faizan laughed when Ayan mentioned it over breakfast. "Bro, this house creaks and groans all the time. It's just the wood expanding or some science thing," he said, pouring tea. "You've been in the city too long." But Ayan couldn't shake the feeling. He wandered around the house after lunch, trying to get more familiar with the space. The long hallway on the upper floor felt colder than the rest of the house. There were locked doors Faizan didn't seem curious about. When Ayan asked, Faizan just shrugged. "Storage. Haven't opened them in years." Later that day, Ayan found an old photo album buried under a pile of newspapers in the study. The pictures were yellowed and dusty. He flipped through the pages slowly, noticing something strange. There was a young boy in many of the pictures, standing at the edge of the frame. Same face, same expression, same black clothes, but no one had ever mentioned him. There were no names written, just one line, scrawled on the last page in faded ink. "Don't listen when it calls your name." That night, Ayan didn't sleep. He stayed in bed with the lamp on, waiting, and once again, just past 2 a.m, the whispers returned. Softer, closer, and this time, they weren't alone. He could hear footsteps, slow, dragging, just outside his room. He held his breath. Then the doorknob turned. The doorknob rattled once and then stopped. Ayan didn't move. He stayed perfectly still, clutching the edge of his blanket like a shield. His heart was thumping so loud he was sure whoever, or whatever, was outside could hear it. But no one entered. The footsteps faded as if drifting down the hallway. Minutes passed, or maybe it was longer. He didn't check the time. When silence finally returned, it wasn't comforting. It felt hollow, as if something had been taken from the air itself. The next morning, Ayan confronted Faizan again. "I heard someone at the door," he said, voice low, and footsteps outside my room. Faizan didn't laugh this time. Instead, he looked tired, almost guilty. I should have told you earlier, he said. There's a reason no one else stays here. Not for long. Ayan pressed for answers. That's when Faizan finally opened up, just a little. He told Ayan about a child who used to live in the house. A cousin, apparently. He died in that same hallway almost 20 years ago. Fell down the stairs in the middle of the night. But there was more to the story. People had reported hearing voices before the accident. Some even claimed the boy used to talk to someone who wasn't there. After he died, strange things started happening. Whispering, cold spots, shadows that didn't belong. Faizan's family moved out shortly after. Only he ever came back, mostly to fix things or check the property. But he never stayed overnight. Now, Ayan was starting to understand why. That afternoon, he went back to the study and searched for more clues. Hidden behind the bookshelf, he found an old cassette recorder. Dusty, half broken, but with a tape still inside. When he played it, the sound that came through was faint but chilling. A young voice, whispering something again and again. It was his name. Ayan dropped the recorder. As evening fell, the house seemed darker than usual. The walls felt tighter, the air heavier. Even Faizan was restless. Maybe we should leave tomorrow, he said quietly. But Ayan couldn't agree just yet. Something was holding him there. Some unseen thread pulling him deeper into the house's secrets. And outside his room, the floor creaked again. The night came fast, as if the sun had disappeared a little earlier than it should have. Ayan stood by the window, watching the last bit of light fade behind the trees. He could feel it again, that same uneasy stillness pressing against the walls of the house, creeping into the corners of his room. Faizan was downstairs, pacing the living room, pretending to be busy but clearly just avoiding the upper floor. Neither of them had talked much since they listened to the tape. There wasn't much to say. They both knew now that something was truly wrong with the house. Ayan couldn't shake the image of the photo album from his mind. The boy in the background, always standing just far enough to be missed unless you were looking closely. And now, he was hearing that same boy whisper his name in the dark. He didn't know if he was being haunted, warned, or pulled into something he couldn't understand. The line between reality and imagination was getting thinner each night. At around 1:30 a.m., he sat on his bed with the tape recorder in his lap, trying to listen again. This time he used headphones, turning the volume up just enough to hear every little sound. The tape started with static, then the faint sound of footsteps, a soft thud, breathing, and then, clear as a whisper in his own ear, his name. Ayan, followed by another voice, deeper, like it didn't belong to a child. It said one word, come. He ripped off the headphones and stood up fast, nearly knocking over the lamp. The lights flickered again, this time longer, like the power was struggling to stay on. From the hallway, a shadow passed. He saw it just out of the corner of his eye. Not a trick of the light. This was movement. Slow, steady, unnatural. He opened the door and stepped out into the hallway. The air was colder than it had ever been. He could see his breath, even though it was the middle of summer. Ayan called out softly, Faizan? But there was no answer. Just the ticking of the old wall clock and the faint, dragging sound coming from the far end of the corridor. He followed it, each step slower than the last. The hallway stretched on in a way that didn't feel right, like it was longer than it should have been. Doors on either side stayed shut, some slightly open, as if waiting for someone to peek in. He passed by the locked door Faizan had dismissed earlier, but now it wasn't locked. It was open just enough to show the dark space inside. Ayan reached out and pushed it wider. The door creaked loudly. Inside was a small, dusty room. Old toys were scattered across the floor, a broken tricycle, a wooden chair turned on its side, and in the far corner, facing the wall, a small figure stood completely still, The whispers started again, louder this time. Ayan stood frozen in the doorway, staring at the figure in the corner. It wasn't moving, not even slightly. It looked like a child, but something about its posture, too stiff, too still, felt wrong. The whispers filled the room now, layered voices overlapping in a slow, repetitive chant. Ayan took a step back, instinct telling him to run, but his feet wouldn't move. He blinked once, and the figure was gone. The room was empty, silent again, except for his own shaky breath. Then, behind him, a soft knock on the door he'd just walked through. He turned slowly, half expecting Faizan, but no one was there, just the hallway dark and quiet. When he stepped out, everything seemed normal again. He rushed downstairs, finally finding Faizan near the back door, phone in hand, face pale. "I just got a call," Faizan said quietly. "From my uncle. He said something's wrong. He had a dream about the boy." Ayan frowned. "What do you mean, a dream?" Faizan looked shaken. "He said the boy isn't dead." Ayan stared at him. "That doesn't make sense. You said he died years ago." "I thought he did," Faizan whispered. "That's what everyone believed. But my uncle said something different. He said the boy disappeared. And he thinks the house took him." Before Ayan could respond, the lights in the kitchen flickered and went out. The room was plunged into darkness. They heard the same dragging footsteps again, but this time from inside the house. Downstairs, closer, heavier. A low hum began vibrating through the floorboards, like something was waking up beneath them. Then a loud bang echoed through the house, shaking the windows. Ayan grabbed Faizan and pulled him toward the front room. As they entered, the old portrait on the wall, a dusty, cracked painting of the original house owner, was glowing faintly around the edges. The face in the painting had changed. It now resembled the boy from the photos, pale, sad, and watching them. Beneath the frame, carved into the wall, was a message neither of them had seen before. "The child is the key." Faizan stepped back, terrified. "What does that mean?" Before Ayan could answer, a gust of cold air blew through the room, and the front door slammed shut on its own. Every window locked tight with a loud snap. They were trapped. The house wasn't just haunted, it was alive, and it didn't want them to leave. From upstairs, the whispers started again, only now they weren't calling Ayan's name, they were calling Faizan's. Faizan froze as the whispers grew louder, swirling around him like a cold wind. The house groaned, its walls creaking as though something ancient stirred deep within. Ayan grabbed his arm, his voice trembling. "We have to go up. I think the answers are in that room." Faizan hesitated, but something inside told him the same. Whatever this presence was, it had chosen him now, and it wasn't going to stop. Step by step, they climbed the stairs, the floorboards beneath them vibrating with a low hum. At the end of the hallway, the once locked room stood wide open. Inside, the small space seemed to stretch beyond its physical walls. Time and light bent unnaturally, and the room pulsed with a strange, flickering glow. In the center was the boy, no longer just a whisper or a shadow. He looked directly at Faizan now. Sad eyes, silent plea. Ayan moved closer and spotted something at the boy's feet, an old locket, half buried in dust. He picked it up and opened it. Inside was a photo, the boy and a man smiling. "It's him, and your uncle," Ayan whispered. Faizan's breath caught. "He's family." The boy stepped forward, mouth opening for the first time. "He left me here," he said softly. "He broke the promise. Now I can't leave." Suddenly the house shuddered violently, the walls vibrating, lights bursting one by one. A deep voice echoed through the room, not the boy's, something darker. The pact was made, the debt must be paid. Faizan realized the house had taken the boy as a child to protect someone else, his uncle, and now the time had come to balance that debt. Without warning, Faizan stepped forward. "Take me," he said, voice steady. "Let him go." The air went still. The boy blinked. Then slowly, he vanished. But the house didn't. Instead, Ayan turned, only to find Faizan standing frozen, eyes glazed. Except it wasn't Faizan anymore. Something else was inside, and it was smiling. Ayan stood frozen, staring at the figure that now wore Faizan's face but held none of his warmth or life. The room seemed to close in, shadows twisting unnaturally around the imposter. For a moment, Ayan wondered if he was dreaming or losing his mind, but the cold air, the heavy silence, and the lingering whispers confirmed this was real. The house hadn't released its hold. It had only shifted its grip. He took a shaky breath and forced himself to step forward. "Faizan?" His voice cracked. There was no response. The smile on the figure's face was chilling, empty, knowing, and cruel. It was a reminder that some bargains come with hidden prices no one truly understands until it's too late. Outside, the sun was beginning to rise, casting pale light through the cracked windows. Slowly, the heavy atmosphere began to lift, the house's oppressive weight lessening with each passing minute. The front door creaked open on its own, and Ayan didn't hesitate this time. He stepped out into the fresh morning air, feeling the warmth wash over him like a lifeline. As he looked back at the house, the whispers faded, replaced by an eerie silence. He realized the boy was finally free. The locket was clutched tightly in his hand, a symbol of a promise kept, a debt paid, but at a cost. Faizan was gone, swallowed by the house's dark history, but his sacrifice had broken the cycle. Walking away, Ayan thought about the fragile line between the living and the lost, between memories and shadows. He understood that some stories aren't meant to be uncovered fully. Sometimes the house keeps its secrets for a reason. The whispers in the dark had been a warning, a call for help, and now a final goodbye. The experience stayed with him, a reminder that courage often means facing what we cannot see and accepting that some mysteries remain unanswered. But most of all, it was about the strength to walk away, leaving the past where it belonged. As the house stood silent behind him, bathed in the morning light, Ayan knew one thing: some darkness never truly fades. It only waits for the next whisper in the dark.